What is the friskiest thing you've done and regret doing? Story 1. I was visiting relatives with my significant other in Seoul and staying with my aunt. I caught a really bad case of the flu halfway through the trip, and we weren't able to do you-know-what for weeks at this point. In my half-awake, flu-ridden, frisky corpse of a shell, I vaguely recall crawling or being dragged by my significant other into my aunt's bathroom in the middle of the night so we could do it while my aunt was asleep in the living room. Amazingly, my girlfriend never caught the flu. We still think about it every now and then and cringe. Story 2. Dated this kinda crazy girl a while ago. Not crazy, but she was something else in the sheets. This one time, I was invited to this opera concert thing. Very fancy night, and so I asked her to come with me. We got a private balcony space for ourselves with an amazing view. Mid-concert, we started to mess around a little bit. When we got so frisky, we did it for real, and so we tried to synchronize the clapping to the instruments and the rhythm of the music. Yeah, that didn't work. We got kicked out and banned for 2 years from the place, got the police called on us, got fined, etc. It was fun though, but it's a messed up thing to do, and it sucked for the artist. I cringe sometimes when I think about it. Don't blame these two for feeling the romance of a fun date night, and they probably would have gotten away with more if they had just kept it to touching or something like that. That is a little bit easier to conceal, but when you go full Monty at an opera, you are bound to get caught. It ain't over until the couple on the balcony gets caught. Story 3. Got a text from a woman I'd been talking to and had hooked up with a few times. This was around 12 a.m., and she wanted me to come over for some fun. We were both 21-year-old students at the time, and so she was living in kind of a super sketchy student neighborhood, about an hour walk on the other side of the city. A right-thinking person would have said no, but frisky me wanted some action. I didn't have my car at the university at the time, so I threw on my coat and told her I'd be there as soon as I could. Basically jogged there. She knew I didn't know her exact house, so she told me to text her when I got on her street, and she'd come and grab me. So I arrived, texted, no reply. She'd gone and fallen asleep. After about 15 minutes of trying to call and text her, I just sent her one saying, well, I guess she'd fallen asleep and I'd be walking home. Anyway, I mentioned this was a super sketchy neighborhood, and on the way home, I got mugged and sliced in my waist and hip and hand. Luckily, I didn't have my cards or money on me, so all they got was my favorite wallet and like 15 pounds in cash and my crappy phone. That was due for renewal anyway. So yeah, my friskiness landed me stranded with 2 knife wounds late at night in an unfamiliar part of the city, minus my phone and wallet. Good times. Story 4. Dates back to 2004, roughly. Had a nasty split from a girlfriend, very nasty, left me in serious debt. One night, as my reward for working 2 jobs, day and night, to make a dent in the bills I was left with, I text this premium dating service, answer various questions it asks, and get a match. Imagine a crap Tinder that charges per swipe. We met, went for Chinese, she came back to mine, and it was a great night. Way better than I could have planned, so well that she stays the next night too. Because I'm not thinking with the right head, protection isn't a thought, and I'm getting drained over and over. She's great until I say that I have a shift in the morning. This goes down badly. She doesn't like that I work with mostly women. She doesn't like it much where it's not just the 2 of us only. Now I go to work, finish the shift, and guess who's outside waiting? I know she has issues, and we've only met 2 nights ago, but this is the deed on tap. After 2 weeks of this repeating, her going into rages when I have to leave, I go to work, call her, and say, look, it's all me, I'm not ready for a relationship, etc. She takes it well, very calmly, and I assume all is good. Cue weeks of her turning up at random times everywhere. Long story short, I can't take it anymore. I explain to my landlord and my employers I have to leave and move away. I make arrangements and give notice and pack my life into 2 bags, ready to go at 4 a.m. to avoid her seeing me and following. My employer and landlord said file a police report, which I did, but it wasn't taken seriously. It took her maybe 2 days to realize I'm gone. Now I'm getting hundreds of calls and texts every day, and I don't answer. Then it stops. All goes silent. I keep thinking I see her car, and every time the phone makes a noise, I think it's her. I'm always on edge. Then I get one text. How do you know I'm not pregnant? I replied, are you? Because I hadn't even considered that. I get no reply. I get no reply ever. I called, I tried a few days later, and the number you are calling is not in service. Please check the required number and dial again. I don't know what happened. There was no good ending, and I'm fairly certain the surname she gave me wasn't correct. So, this whole thing is my regret. Story 5. Once I had an office job. Hallway shared a mutual bathroom for all the offices. I went to choke the chicken in the stall. I know, I was young. Then a guy comes into the stall next to me. I go silent, and then slowly start again because I was close. Then he takes the most violent vocal crap ever. I was so close, I was like, crap, I gotta do this and get out. So I finally do it, and then the most unbelievable thing happened. I finish, and right then and there, he dropped a piece of crappy toilet paper on the ground between our stalls. I was horrified and froze, with my friend still in my hand. Then, after a good 5 seconds of time-halting silence, he reached down and frantically grabbed it. And not carefully, right? He grabbed it right in the mud zone. After that, we were both frozen with fear and humility. I don't think he knew what I was doing, and we both definitely knew that he just took a loud, violent crap and dropped poopy paper on the floor. So, we froze for the most painful minute of my life, both pondering who makes the first exit. He ended up going before me, and I waited for him to wash his hands and go, as I clean up my own mess in complete and utter despair. Then I leave, shook to my core, and solemnly walk back to my office knowing I had to act normal to my coworkers, and couldn't share that devastating blow of a situation that had just happened to me. I never knew who it was, or if they were my coworker or what. But yeah, that was a moment. Not saying that you would want to, but I bet if you lurked around the office for a bit and checked for signs of shame and embarrassment, you could identify the crappy culprit just by their facial expressions. And no need to be horrified for choking the chicken in the stall. That is totally normal. Every guy does it. But dropping your crap on the floor like that is a little bit different. In the comments, which of these guys did the worst deed? Story 6. Backstory. Last winter, my boyfriend, a 25-year-old, was living at his parents' place for a little while because he was just getting a new job and needed to save up for a car and stuff. But the thing is, his parents are very strict because of COVID. He wasn't allowed to have me there, and either way, we weren't allowed to be in the room together with the door closed. Even if we were, they'd come in randomly to check on us. So he'd tell them he was going on hikes during the day, and we'd go for hikes together to spend time together. One of these times, we were both very into it, and we hadn't had fun together or done anything together in a long time. So he found a hiking trail that was pretty abandoned, and we decided to follow it and found an iced-over pond that was surrounded by a lot of dead bushes and hid us so nobody would find us. Now, it was very cold. We live in Canada, and it was mid-January, so even fully clothed, you could still feel the burn. We decided to take our coats off and laid on them and had fun together. It was so hot and it felt so good, we never really noticed how cold it was. On the way back to his car, I could barely move my legs though, and they burned so much from the cold, and I was stumbling, and looking back, I've realized I've got minor frostbite on the part of my thigh. As of this winter, I found the area gets very red and dry when it gets cold, and the skin is just physically tougher than the rest of my leg. Story 7. When I was 14 years old and drunk for the third time or so, yes, we can drink from age 16 and everyone starts drinking early in DK, a girl asked if I had never kissed anyone before, and I said yes, and we made out. This activated me, so I got very, very drunk and dry humped a lot of girls to the laughter of all my male classmates. This pains me to think about. This is stuff where I meet people from my class today as a 28-year-old, and I wonder if they remember that. I just remember at the end of that party, some of the girls were very concerned about me trying to bicycle my way home, and they were about to call their parents to drive me. It was hard to even write this for a dumb internet post. If cancel culture was a thing back in 2008, I probably would have been too self-aware, even as a teen, to know not to do that. Story 8. I was 16 and got my first internship in this government building. Imagine Parks and Rec if it was a big 10-story building. I had my entire days scheduled, like when to go to lunch, when to take break, when to go and have afternoon snack, which they provided, and yada yada. So anyways, there was this blonde chick that I would always see on hallways and stuff. She worked on another floor and was always eyeing everyone whenever she crossed paths with someone. And one day, she did it to me. Now to this day, no one has ever looked at me like that, and I'm 31 now. So imagine what went through the mind of a teenager with social anxiety and no friends when that happened, right? A few hours later, I asked if I could have my break a little earlier since I was going to go all the way to a faraway floor to drop some files for another office, and my boss said it was okay. I dropped the files, went to that floor restroom, checked all the doors. I was alone. I entered the last one, put my feet against the door so no one would see that I was in there, and started to do the tug-of-war with the Cyclops thinking about the blonde girl. As soon as I finished, I heard bang, bang, bang on the outside of my door. Get out! Stop what you're doing and get out! Now obviously I panicked. I grabbed toilet paper, wiped my hand, and throw it in the toilet and flush. I opened the door. As I said, this was a government building, so there were 2 security guards waiting for me outside the stall. "What were you doing in there?" "What? Why do you want to know?" He looked pissed, grabbed my hand, yes, that hand, "Let me smell your hand," and just gave it a sniff. After a few seconds, he tried to contain his laughter and looked at his partner. It's okay." Then at me, "We got a report on some kids smoking on the bathrooms. Guess we still need to find them." "Oh, okay," I said. "Yeah, take care, kid." And then they left the restroom and I heard him exploding laughing. He knew. That has to be a little demoralizing for the security guards after the humor wears off, because not only are you trying to track down the very serious crime of kids smoking, and then you accidentally sniff some guy's recent sausage handshake. I'm not sure what they expected to find sniffing the hand, like that they couldn't just discover by smelling the general area around the bathroom and the person. Smoke has a tendency to float through the air, you know. Story 9. I was friends with this girl in high school. Super sweet and innocent. We both liked art and were really just good friends. We went out on a couple dates, but nothing too serious. I graduated and we lost contact for a little bit, but then out of nowhere, she texted me on my way home from work and asked to hang out. So I asked where she wanted to go. I gave options like movies, bowling, that stuff, and she replies back with, "Honestly, I just want to do it." I have never had a more perfect U-turn in my life. I drove to her house, we went to a parking lot and did it in the car, and then we got tacos afterwards and I took her home. That was it. Story 10. Me and my girlfriend were hiking in the snow and came across a kind of abandoned wooden farm building. It had a hole in the roof and had very obviously been left for years. So being frisky, we went inside and got to it. Whilst we were doing it, I looked over her shoulder and noticed some shopping bags and little trinkets laying around in various places. Just thought it was odd and carried on. Eventually, I started scanning the room whilst doing it again, and eventually locked eyes with a very obviously confused homeless guy who was stood back against a back wall watching us. We had basically stumbled into this guy's shelter that it seemed he had been living in for a while, and did it in his front room whilst he watched from a corner. We grabbed our stuff and ran. Story 11. About 10 years ago, a close family member was in the process of dying from cancer. They had been given a day or two to live, and our family had been taking shifts at their bedside. I live closest to the hospice, so close family were using my house as a base to rest. I was stressed and needed to let off steam. I didn't want to sleep with someone. I just needed a night out and away from death and heartbreak. I was single at the time, so I jumped on a dating app and I matched an interesting-looking girl. So I straight up asked her if she fancied meeting for a drink, and she did. And what followed was one of the most bizarre nights of my dating life. Within minutes of meeting her, I realized that she was on something. She was very hyper and kept asking me if I did sugar. She then made it very clear that she was not interested in chatting. She then showed me a video of herself having fun with 2 guys at the same time. She then asked if I wanted to grab some booze and head back to her place, and in my weakened state, I agreed. We ended up in a taxi on the way to her flat, and in the taxi, I realized that she stank of booze and was clearly very drunk. She lived above and off license in a terrible part of town. She walked into the shop and bought the cheapest, nastiest whiskey. When we walked into her flat, I was hit by the smell of cat piss and cigarettes. Her flat was disgusting. And before I had the chance to make an excuse to leave, she was half undressed. I didn't even take my jacket off or say anything. I just turned around and walked out of the door. I grabbed a beer from the off license and walked home. It took nearly 2 hours to get home, but I enjoyed every second of it. I hope this guy is saying he enjoyed every second of the trip home, far, far away from this crazy chick, versus saying that he enjoyed the time with said crazy chick. You know, it didn't turn out how he was hoping as far as the night's activities, but at least he got the distraction from his sad and stressful time that he was looking for and needed. Story 12. I drove 1 hour to see a girl I've hooked up with before and was super excited to see again. We were supposed to see each other in a hotel I booked, but she wanted to take me to a nightclub first. 45 minutes walk to reach the nightclub. We enjoyed the first part of the night, got drunk, and then she just disappeared. No phone call or text answers. After a while, I decided to leave, but was super drunk and I didn't know where I was. I just wandered into the streets in the middle of the night in a city I didn't know. 3 sketchy dudes tried to sell me weed, and one of them punched me with full force in the jaw. I was just like, what the hell? I just need to find my hotel, sleep, and get out of this town. I finally reached the hotel after what seemed like hours of walking, slept a bit, and woke up with a monstrous hangover, and my sore jaw cracking when I opened my mouth. I immediately reached my car and drove back home, puking in my car while driving. The day after, the girl texted me that she had just met some friends of hers outside the nightclub, but didn't have any battery left on her phone, so we just missed each other. Yeah, right. Screw that night. 5 years later, and my jaw is still cracking. Story 13. Second semester of my sophomore year of college, I was in a long-distance relationship with a guy who went to a school that was a 4.5-hour drive away, each direction. The first time I visited him for the weekend, we did it in one of his university's libraries. Now, from then on, we made it our mission to do it in every single one of his university's various libraries before the semester was over. Think the law library, the health sciences library, the engineering library, etc. There were over 20 total. I visited him almost every weekend for the entire semester, and the weekend before finals, we did it in 6 different libraries over 2 days while they were packed with students studying for finals. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, mission accomplished. I mean, it's too bad they don't give out trophies for such feats of spreading your collective seed all over the campus book depositories. I'm sure it was a fun little treat and something to look forward to during their visits with each other. You have to spice it up somehow if you're going to drive 9 hours every weekend to just see each other. Good for them for trying to keep it spicy, all while not getting caught, apparently. Bravo!